Well, the concepts of monotropism and the concept of flow states, I think, are very much related in a way of conceptualizing the autistic way of being. Monotropism refers to that kind of tendency or strategy of one uses, which is that highly focused, passionate interest, and it's also a way of getting into a kind of flow state is another way of describing it, because the term flow state refers to a form of kind of optimal experience, as it was described, where one kind of loses oneself in the activity, so sense of self, sense of time, sense of what else is going on around you becomes irrelevant, or your attention is fully taken up in the activity itself. And that relates well to the monotropic perceptual kind of system, as it were. So, and being in a flow state can be very beneficial and reduce stress. And this relates to the interest model of autism, or what's called monotropism, which is a theory of autism one tends not to hear as much about, because you have the sort of dominant theories, theory of mind, executive function, and so on. And it was a theory that was devised by an academic who's on the spectrum themselves, Diana Murray, and it goes all the way back to the 1980s. But it's also been developed by others, especially Wen Lawson. And it suggests the shaping of many cognitive processes depend upon a competition between mental processes for attention, or attention and interest, in a sense, is a scarce resource. And it suggests a kind of spectrum, if you like, of strategies to deal with one's attention, whether someone has any choice in this or not. And monotropism is that highly focused, bit one-tracked, focused in mindset, whilst polytropism is being able to take in lots of different bits of information at the same time and deal with it and respond to it and so on. That in the moment type stuff. And if you think of social interaction, where you're listening, talking, looking at body language, and there's other stuff going on, and doing that quickly, that's a kind of more of a polytropic mindset, and it's not something autistic people tend to be very good at. On the other side, though, with activities which require that intense, detailed focus, autistic people often can get very good at things. And this gives an indication, perhaps, of why people on the spectrum show a tendency towards being passionately interested in something or not interested at all, and how that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense as well. And that kind of then leads on to things like spiky profile of abilities, stuff like that. When autism is also often characterised by sensitivity to external stimuli and difficulties processing multiple sources of information, such a strategy, being monotropic, is rational rather than dysfunctional. It's a sensible thing to do. By entering into a monotropic flow-like state, people on the spectrum can gain predictability and control over their immediate environment, get a sense of achievement and in the moment fun. So, in a sense, repetitive tasks even for a young child can be extremely rewarding for the predictability, for example. And this is a quote from Dinah Murray, we suggest that the uneven skills profile in autism depends on which interests are being fired into monotropic superdrive, which have been left unstimulated by any felt experience or connection. So, and in a social context, this kind of feedback loop can be very important as well. Experiences of failure or the condemnation and mocking of others can become quite a devastating kind of self-fulfilling prophecy in itself. There's tons of psychology and sociology stuff over the years about this kind of thing. This can be highly influential on which interests are followed through and which are stopped through feelings of fear and anxiety. Anyone here got a pathological loathing of maths? No? No. That's quite unusual. Must be so.
Lots of psychology people. Statistics, obviously. Yeah, statistics is good then, yeah.
So, stats you're not scared of.
Yeah.
Trying to think of
This is not a representative sample of people, humanity, I don't think. Real people.
Okay, if you were all in an art class and being judged on your artwork,
I'm stressed.
okay, now we get it. So, you get that kind of mindset can be self-defeating, but it can become incredibly entrenched. So the more experiences of failure, mocking, embarrassment, exposure, anxiety, all of these negative stuff, the more likely you're going to be put off from even attempting to do something. And that can end up with like young autistic children by the age of like 6 or 7 going, I hate school, I'm not going in, and fighting their parents at the school gate trying to get away from the place and stuff. So it's quite, can become embedded really quite early on, this kind of avoidance thing. But the opposite can be true as well with that passionate interest. So it kind of shapes how one develops. And disruptions to flow can be quite traumatic as well, and lead to sensory overload and fragmentation. And often this disruption can be really quite unwanted and feel quite invasive. And so reactions like meltdowns, shutdowns, panic attacks and stuff, as I'm going into one here, become more likely. So if someone was to have, in that first photograph, stopped me playing with my Hornby railway set, it would have probably really upset me and I'd have got all discombobulated kind of thing. So that's quite a difficult thing, is moving from one task onto another kind of thing, or can be.